Okay, good morning everyone, or afternoon or evening or wherever you may be. Welcome to this inaugural Blockchain Stories 2020 event. I'm Julian Gordon and I'm the Asia Pacific VP for Hyperledger. I'm speaking from Hong Kong today and I'm delighted to be invited to open this event. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Hyperledger India Chapter for organizing this great series. It's such a great idea. There are many fascinating stories to be told in the development of enterprise blockchain, with many blockchain networks progressing from POCs to pilots to production, here in Asia Pacific, globally, and across industries. To have this series where some of these pilots and deployment journeys can be shared and discussed is so interesting, so useful, and I believe will help inspire and inform the Hyperledger and broader open source community on what is happening and what is possible, and hopefully will spark ideas on how you can join in. With COVID-19 currently and dramatically upending our world, it is heartening for the Hyperledger community to have these series running through the summer, where we can all join virtually to share, learn, and discuss. We are an open source, supportive community. Everyone is welcome, which is perhaps more important than ever in these times. Across Asia Pacific and globally, Hyperledger is seeing significant trends in enterprise blockchain and open source, as it has a rapidly increasing impact on how business, government, and society work. Some of these emerging block trends we're excited about include interoperability between networks, self-sovereign, distributed digital identity that is rewriting the rules for identity management, the maturing of governance models, and initiatives such as the World Economic Forum's Presidio principles that could provide foundational values for our decentralized future, some of which you're going to hear about in this series. With COVID-19, Hyperledger is seeing an urgent acceleration in the development and use of enterprise blockchain to enable greater digitization, streamlining of operations and trust, particularly in supply chain, healthcare, and finance. And as an example, you'll be hearing about a highly successful and innovative trade finance blockchain solution from dltledgers today. The Hyperledger India Chapter launched around a year ago. Its volunteers and organizers have been amazing, building community, creating great events. Many of the chapter members have incredible technical knowledge and expertise and provide support to developers across India and beyond. So I say thank you to Amol, Ajay, Arun, Kamlesh, Sean, Lakshay, Vishal, and many, many more. I would encourage everyone listening to get involved in the Hyperledger community. Contributions can come in many forms. You can contribute to a project, help to organize events like this, show up and attend events, help with translation, write documentation, any activity that helps build and supports our shared ecosystem. A great way to start is to join, especially for those in India, the Hyperledger India Chapter calls. They are on every Wednesday afternoon. You can find out how to do this by going to our Hyperledger wiki, and I always recommend going to our Hyperledger wiki for first place and place for information, and that is on wiki.hyperledger.org. Or please reach out to any of the community. Everyone is happy to help and support you get involved. So with that brief introduction, I would like to say thank you, stay safe everybody, and please enjoy this event. And now I'm going to hand this over to you, Arun.
Thanks, Julian. That was awesome. Welcome.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm sure that community in India will adapt to it, and then we'll have something to show you in getting involved in the open source community. As a first talk, we have a talk from dltledgers. We have Raja Iyengar and Atul Patel from dltledgers joining us in. And Raji has experience of over 3 decades in industries and also has leadership experience from companies like IBM as well. And currently she is head of South Asia and India division of dltledgers. And we request you to start the session. Over to you, Raji. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Julian. That was a good introduction and a good welcome, I would say. Okay, I need to share the screen, but it's not letting me share the screen. I guess you can see it now. Can you? I guess you can.
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So as Julian and Arun also introduced, so this is Raji Iyengar. Thanks for your time to be on this. I am the Managing Director for dltledgers for India and South Asia. As Arun mentioned, I've been in the IT industry for over 30 years, both in India as well as overseas. I'm currently based out of India and happy to connect with everyone in the call after this, should you need any discussions further. So, as Julian mentioned, and as we've all seen now, I don't think we need to spend too much time, but this happened. The event happened, right? Economies declined, a lot of sad things happened. But now let's try and see how to navigate this global trade and this so-called new normal. For years, actually, trade finance digitization has been more focused on efficiency, cost savings, or even lower risks of error. But with COVID and the lockdown, we are seeing that customers, including regulatory authorities, are supporting that digitization is not only going to is a necessity to keep the commerce moving, but definitely will enhance commerce as well. This is what we've been seeing in the news today. I mean, while all of us say this, even World Economic Forum says pandemic strengthens the case for using blockchain in supply chains. Here's another one which talks about how the pandemic accelerates drive for blockchain in trade finance. They're going about saying how it can actually reduce the LC transactions from several days to a few hours. And I'll share with you about the platform and how we can do this. But here's what it is. The technology has been around for a few years, right? But this health crisis is certainly accelerating its use. So that's the support that's coming from whatever has happened now. So without much ado, let me quickly jump into what cross-border trade digitization we're talking about from dltledgers and why this is so imperative to keep the wheels of commerce moving. So stay with me on this. dltledgers is headquartered in Singapore, and it started over 3 years ago. And in this short span of existence, we have had over 3 billion worth of transactions and trade financed over this platform. This is a production grade platform. I'm not talking about POCs here. I'm not talking about something that is a trial. It is a production grade platform. And we have over 400 plus trade houses that have adopted this. So dltledgers is a corporate, private, secure network platform, if I may say that. As you can see, there are some recognitions in the lower part of the screen that is affirming the fact that there is a clear need for a post-trade execution platform. Our plan is, as I said, we are based out of Singapore, but we are also there now in India. We've just started. We are in UAE, we are in ANZ and Tokyo. Very soon, our plan is to go across all the major hubs, as you can see, Sao Paulo, New York, Geneva, etc., and cover all the major hubs for trade. So let's begin with a little bit of basics. I know in the audience, we have a lot of folks who are very well-versed with blockchain and Hyperledger, and I'm hoping that there are some traders and business folks too. But just let's quickly look at, what's the basics of what we call as cross-border trade. A simple definition out of the dictionary. If you look at what trade is, it's a flow of goods between two countries, right? Two countries, two jurisdictions involving people, businesses, which is essentially flow of goods, flow of documents, flow of contracts, and flow of money. These are the four important elements of, whenever a trade happens. And clearly there is a need for integrating all these flows to ensure that there is, we are able to release cash and improve the supply chain efficiency. So that's clearly an advantage. Now, in its most basic form, if you look at any trade, and as you can see, this is a busy slide, but in its most basic form, trade is a complicated transaction, and I'm sure a lot of us on this call will agree to this. A buyer in one country, a seller in another, middlemen, agents, to navigate a maze of shipping, customs officials, ground transportations. We have banks on both sides, often providing funding to complete the deal, right? So in normal times, global trade anyway happens despite all this notoriously messy exchanges of legal paperwork. But now add loads of restrictions during a worldwide pandemic like this, and the wheels of international commerce have certainly the potential to slow down, right? I'm sure you'd agree to that. So here's a solution. What we're trying to say is this is a private independent network. We're bringing all the various counterparties involved in a trade to come together and transact through this platform. So what we're looking at here is that you can create your trade flow between different parties involved in your trade transaction. We call it as the trade execution engine. With templates, there are ready templates, hundreds of ready templates to execute a smart contract, networking all these parties, and using a dynamic consensus engine. Again, thanks to Hyperledger Fabric and blockchain, that this is a very, very robust platform that we have built. The digital document exchange is also a single repository. There is a secure vault, what we call as a digital filing cabinet, and for all the participating parties to look at different trade documents involved. However, the trader, the subscriber, is the one who actually gets to control and see, allow access of the documents on a need-to-know basis. So that's extremely advantageous. This can integrate with your backend ERP systems so that contracts are executed seamlessly. So you can actually pull out a contract from your existing ERP systems and go ahead with the flow. What you're looking in the left side corner is the rapid financing part. As you know, lots of frauds and errors cause unwanted delay too. There is a loss of time, loss of money for banks. So digital trade finance is a trusted channel for banks to fund trusted network of customers. We've been talking to a number of banks and traders in the last few weeks in India, and banks are also keen to get a handle on the supply chains that they are financing, right? So this is quite important element of the platform. We also look at tracing and visibility element where shipping and logistics companies with the API connect can connect with the system. So there is real-time tracking now. So again, here's a platform where we have all the parties involved in trade come together, exchange documents, and sort of reduce the entire time and come into this unified platform, I would say, and exchange information through, and all is through mutual consensus, again, thanks to blockchain. If I may just take a quick look at the tangible benefits of coming into a digitized platform. So I did share with you in the previous slide as to what all can be done, but let's take a quick look at this tangible benefits. One of the key benefits is certainly a reduction in financing cost, which is about 15 to 20%. As these are the data that we've collected after speaking to various customers. As I told you, there are at least 410 traders and 65 banks in the platform, and we've been talking to quite a lot of them. The cycle time reduction in absolute terms is again a great thing to look at. Now, if you look at long haul, a 45 days trade cycle, for example. If it's a long haul, let's say cargo getting shipped from US to Mumbai or Southeast Asia, A complete trade cycle could be anywhere between 40 to 45 days, right? Now, this can be reduced by at least 10 days by using a platform like this. All the paper documents, exchange, all approval, etc. That is certainly an advantage to all in this chain. And if it's a short haul, say between Mumbai and anywhere in Southeast Asia, be it Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Indonesia, where the shipment may reach in 10 days, but the documents take longer through banks, as again, as many of us have experienced. So for those extra days that stock is lying in the port, it attracts demurrages. But what we're trying to say here is that let's go ahead with digitization so that that cycle time is reduced. This again is a very wordy slide. I wanted to take a little bit more samples of how exactly there could be an advantage. This is saving in bank interest paid due to reduction in cycle time. It's a self-explanatory slide, you can read it. But I have taken the example of two scenarios. One is with a small and medium segment. If you say on a 1 million transaction that they do, having an interest rate of 10%, obviously it may not be 10%, but I've just taken that as an example. And you do that for 10 days and divided by, let's say, 360 days. The approximate saving that we're looking at is about 3K. So the annual savings is a good 300K for a small and medium enterprise segment. And now when you look at a larger segment, obviously, I mean, a large enterprise, we are talking of at least $1 million that actually can be saved. These are very tangible. The platform, as I said, and if I didn't say it before, it's completely plug and play. And to make it readily available, the core modules are 16, which are clearly defined. As you can see, there's a smart contract engine, there is a digital file cabinet that I spoke about, there's AI, fraud detection, ERP connectors for backend, etc. So these core modules are there, the 16 ones, which are clearly defined, and these signature elements which are intrinsic to this platform to ensure the platform is relevant to the customers. And this modular approach also helps in quick deployment. And now that's a very powerful client proposition that we are talking about. Great. So why did we choose Hyperledger? Is that even a question, I would say? It's very obvious. So yeah, dltledgers chose Hyperledger as its fabric to build on. Obviously, as it's modular in architecture, there is flexibility while offering performance and stability. And being a leader in permission networks was an added bonus when working with banks and large enterprises. So again, who is dltledgers platform useful for? As I said, on the right side, you can see our user base. There are, all these traders and banks and even farmers and logistics. And sometime later, probably in another webinar, I'll go into details of how we are linking the entire value chain of farmers produce to, to the mills and then to the exports and then landing at your doorstep. But that's for another day. So again, so who is it useful for? It's the banks, traders, large enterprises, logistic companies, and even insurers, I would say. And as you can see, each one has their own, benefits that they get. As I said, banks can dramatically increase visibility into their trade flows, the turnaround time, risk, fraud, all that is reduced. Auditors and regulators, again, gain access to real-time information because these are all immutable record of transaction. So it's, if there are two things that you need to take away from this, one is that dltledgers is a private, secure network platform built on blockchain, on Hyperledger fabric, and the records are immutable. So I could even go to the extent to say that if the trade is done on this platform, it's absolutely a genuine one, right? So yeah, there are several portfolios, several tangible POCs also done. Like I said, this is a production grade platform. However, we have been doing a number of POCs. So and there are live cases as well. We will share with you one such success story today. But do get in touch with us later if you would like, a POC done. And for those of you who are from the software side, and if you think there is any benefit that you can bring in your clients also, I mean, we could have a joint discussion on that. Here is a case study that is very famous, and you would find a lot of PR around this on AgroCorp, on how they use this platform. What were their issues was that there was high operational cost, there was delay in their supply chain, and obviously there was no visibility also in the trade. And they were looking for a super connector to build all these different, if I may say, digital islands. And that's exactly what we do too. So it's an enterprise solution. And through DLT Ledgers, through this platform, AgroCorp was able to offer its supply chain some real-time updates on commodity prices and delivery information as well. Also, trade financing approval for orders from around the world. So you could see, you know, what amount of benefits, and you'll hear from them in a minute. They're also seeing other indirect benefits, like, you know, traditionally there was a lot of cost related to operations, right? So typically a member of staff would have to manage the entire document flow for each trade that we were talking about in terms of the customer success story. As you saw, there's DBS Bank involved. Like I said, there are 65 plus banks. There's DBS, Stanchart, Rabobank, all the, you know, pretty prominent banks. In India, we are talking to ICICI, Federal, IndusInd, and others as well. So we are hoping to sort of accelerate faster here in India, and I'm sure with all your support we will. So again, DLT Ledgers and Hyperledger. So there's real-time updates, faster trade financing, as we just went through it, reduced cycle time, and of course, a very, very seamless and secure environment. Before I go, so we at DLT Ledgers have been busy talking to and onboarding some traders, banks, and large enterprises, MSMEs, logistics companies, shipping companies onto our platform. We are in active discussions in trade communities, trade associations on how blockchain-based platforms can help in this emerging new normal. As I'm sure many of you have attended various other webinars, and I think in this COVID situation, there's one good advantage is that all of us have been listening to a lot of, attending a lot of webinars. And you know, in most of these trade-related webinars, they have been talking about how we must go ahead with digitization. So there is always a first step. It is not daunting. Let's take that first step and talk to us. Let's keep the wheels of and engines of commerce moving. My number and my email ID is here, and we will field some of your questions. Thank you very much, and over to you, Arun.
We have a few questions on the chat. Atul, would you like to speak about it?
Yeah, so am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the earlier...
Atul, this is a different Atul from the...
Oh, okay.
From the DLT Ledgers. Yeah, Atul.
Atul from DLT Ledgers. Are you, would you like to speak, answer those questions on the chat?
Absolutely. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so thank you. There are some questions. So let me just run through the questions and comments that came through. So I think there's a question from Bhavna saying, you know, why would you use underlying blockchain or distributed ledger? I think this is about parties in the cross-border trade who are at arm's length. So they are really not really trusting each other, typically in a cross-border scenario that Rajiv went through. So there's quite a bit of inefficiencies and repeat of documentations that are needed to really make the trade work. And then obviously there is an inherent unscrupulous elements who creep into this kind of scenarios who could result into the fraud. And what you see in the stories such as double financing, as well as anything else that's happening, is primarily as a result of that. So it's actually a foundational scenarios that can only be solved by a tech like distributed ledger. And that's where, you know, I think we are looking at, you know, driving benefits that Raji talked about. There was a question from Prabjit about how the tracing is done through the IoTs. I think in the case that we focused on primarily on this use case on cross-border trade, we are looking at leveraging the existing tracking and tracing that would have been done by different parties, such as logistic party, which is in the chain, would have their own way of tracking where the ship is. But I think we are trying to connect the dots, if you will, in a very kind of a private fashion to provide them with a trade clock so they can see where exactly that particular trade is. In some of the scenarios that we are working with some of the large customers, we could, on provenance and food safety, I think there is a definite case to connect with IoT, and we've already done that integration as well. There is a question in terms of Laurent, in terms of the number of nodes in the network. So that's a great question. So, we have been in production for the last 18 months or so. I think as of there was a report out publicly, which I'll just post it after I finish talking, which talks about the, what we had as of March. I think it mentioned about over 520 nodes, which are in production as of now. And we are the largest in terms of the production deployment of the nodes across the world. Brian talks about us in the global discussions as well. So yes, it is something that we take really good pride of. Our tech team has been world-class to really deliver that 500 odd nodes, and it could actually, by end of the year, it probably will hit about 1,000, given the demands that we see in this time to go digital. Yeah, and there was probably one more question that's coming through from Shrey Jans in terms of number of nodes increases, latency also increases, and how is that managed? So it's part of the scalability and TPS reports that we have. We have not yet even touched 20% of what the framework like Hyperledger could deliver. So I don't think there is any issues in terms of latency or potential issues in terms of scalability. Simply, we need more and more adoption, more and more of cross-border trade to happen. At this rate, I'm seeing, even, it's about getting adoption is a challenge, not the scalability of latency. There is another question about how participants can own node in the supply chain. I think it's again, they actually get, the nodal network gets initiated in matter of, few hours. And, that's kind of set up and with all the application on top of the nodal network is initiated to them. And they could start configuring and adding their business partner into the network. So it's fairly quick process to initiate the node. Obviously, there are details if they are looking at, a different infrastructure provider underneath what we have. I mean, we could do that as well, but most commonly used infrastructure provider are already supported by us to initiate the node. I think questions keeps coming. Maybe this is the final question because I don't want to take a lot of time of the other speakers. It's about, there's a question from Giridhar about a question about Hyperledger Fabric. Is it decentralized or centralized system, and how secure it is? So first of all, Giridhar, welcome to the right forum. And it is indeed a distributed ledger, and it's probably the most widely used distributed ledger open source platform in the world. So certainly it is distributed, it is not centralized. And if you are looking for a centralized solution, maybe you are in the wrong forum. There's a question from Vinod from data analytics in blockchain storing data, right? So it's a great point about how I can layer, visibility of the trade and, using some of the great work that has been happening with the data analytics side with, likes of Tableaus and, some nice domos and some nice analytics tools. I think it refers again back to fundamentally getting the mechanics of adoption and trade going with the different counterparties. I think we can definitely plug into, any of those data analytics best-in-class tools which are there out. But I guess the business case here is not about data analytics. Business case here is to solve the trust that misses in different parties, and certainly data analytics is icing on the cake.